The squat is arguably the most fundamental lift. From old school legends to NFL players and Olympic weightlifters, almost every athlete at some point has tried to increase their squat. But only one person can say that they were the first to squat 1,000 pounds raw. Ray Williams is that person. He squatted 1,000 pounds and then he pushed it to the current world record, 1,080.
Ray Williams, 1,000.
Yes! History was just made.
Since then, Ray has faced his challenges, which we will talk about in this video. I'm grateful to be able to call him a friend, ring him up, and if you watch this video in its entirety, you will learn at least one thing that you did not already know about the greatest squatter in human history. What's up, guys? It's Johnny Candido of Candido Training HQ. Today, I have a very special guest on. It is the first man to squat 1,000 pounds raw. In my opinion, the greatest powerlifter of all time, but we'll get to that a little bit later in the video. Ray Williams. Okay,
what's up, y'all?
Yeah, so Ray, how are you doing? And more specifically, how are you doing during these pandemic times? Right.
I like to say I'm blessed. I'm doing well. I was fortunate to be able to have a place to train throughout the whole pandemic. It was a bit of an adjustment at first, but for the most part, once I kind of hit my stride and got used to being in the little room that I'm in, everything kind of just fell in its place.
Yeah, so did you actually have a place to train the entire time? So literally no break at all in between? Continuous training?
There was not necessarily a break, but there were massive adjustments that had to be made because the place I train just so happens to be on the campus I work on. And for a certain amount of time, we could only be on campus for an hour or two or certain days. And it kind of had its progression. At first, we could only be on campus on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Then it progressed to Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then it just progressed to you can be there whenever you want. Then there was a time limit. And, now it's whatever you want. I can go and leave as I please. It's just, depending on what the climate was as far as COVID-19, that's how the school operated. And, just having a place to train, I consider it a blessing. So I just worked within those constraints and tried to get it done to the best of my ability.
Yeah, so what does that look like have you done a workout in 1 hour or 2 hours? Like, how can you even do a workout like that? I'd imagine it takes you around an hour and a half just to warm up to a single, right?
Yes. It does take a long time, and that's where, I give a lot of praise and thanks to Coach Gary because he worked with me. We kind of put our heads together and came up with a plan so that if I only had an hour and a half in the gym, all my warm-ups had to be on point. For me, for the most part, I had to kind of stay focused because, as a powerlifter, you sometimes lose focus. You'll hit a couple of warm-ups, you'll stop, you'll start stretching. Next thing you know, I get a text message and I'm in a full text conversation, or you get on IG, you take a peek, the next thing you know, you look up, you've been on IG for 10, 15 minutes. And then on top of that, I coach football, so one of my players texts or called me with a problem, and then they switched to an online format, so there were a lot of problems as far as communication between teachers and the players, so we had to be the kind of third-party mediator type of person between the players and the teachers, and it was rough, but we got it done. I mean, it sucked, but we got it done.
Yeah, it does seem to be a theme, as it seems like the lifters who keep progressing in these times, it's kind of like what I said earlier, and Joey Franzo, who I'm sure you know, Joey Flex, yeah, he was basically enthusiastically agreeing, is that it's like the lifters who were already progressing well and put it as a high priority, it almost expands even further because it's like you still find a way to get it done. And those who are kind of on the fence, now, I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of people totally drop off or kind of shift interests. And I think it really it kind of spreads out that divide even more. I think kind of like the rich get richer type situation. But before we get lost too deep into that, I actually want to I kind of want to have a chronological order. So my first question to you is, you've squatted 1,080 pounds, right?
Yes, sir.
490 kilos, which is just an absurd thing to think about. When is the first time you squat 500 pounds?
500 kg or 500
just
pounds?
500 pounds.
The first time I ever squatted 500 pounds, I was in 11th grade, an 11th grader in high school.
Okay,
yes, sir.
So junior in high school? And so around that time, what was the order? Like, what was the first lift you got into of the powerlifting movements? I know that you were a football player, right, in Alabama. So what was the order of the lifts? Was it that you started squatting first, then started benching, then started deadlifting, or did the bench come first?
I actually hated squat and bench when I first started, because we seventh and eighth graders, when we started lifting, they would only let us do box squats. They would only let us do box squats. And at the time, it was because of safety and so on and so forth. So when I got to high school, I was so used to squatting on the box that I didn't want a free squat. I didn't like free squatting. Really? And I really just didn't like it. And we had our coach. He had an old philosophy: you wanna squat big numbers, and you're nervous, so on and so forth. Hey, just remember one thing: all you gotta do is stand up. And it kind of, that old school mentality. It kind of, no, that's totally not the mentality you want to have. Because I remember being a freshman watching some of the older guys max out, and I'm watching dudes getting crushed, and I'm like, no, that just doesn't work. So my first lift that I actually fell in love with was actually hang clean and power clean.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting. What was your best power clean?
My best power clean ever was about 405, and that was one of those days where everything kind of was perfect. Like, everything was perfect. And if you ask me if I could have did it again, probably not. I was probably between 265, 285, like, consistently. The 405 was just a beautiful day. Like, it just,
how
Jesus
old
was
were
in the
you
room.
when that happened?
Oh, I was a senior. In college.
In college. Yeah, so do you ever think to yourself, I mean, you are literally the strongest squatter of all time, which is funny. Have you ever thought that, I'll actually bring this name up later in this episode here, is that Shane Hamman is someone who's very similar to you in a lot of ways. And he went the weightlifting route, and he was pretty successful. He made it to Olympic stage. Do you think if you did pursue weightlifting full time from the start, that you could have made the Olympics legitimately? Obviously, from the outside looking in, like I know you're a humble guy. But
if you ask me from a strength standpoint, yes. Well, I'll just say yes, because the strength was there. It's just that, I know it would have took years and years of, honing in and making sure my technique was where it needed to be, because as we both know, weightlifting is more about technique than anything.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot. I think the thing that's unique about you, and I think a lot of people still don't realize, is just how athletic you've always been. Is because, how many pull-ups was it that you were doing? You were doing like 12 or 10 plus pull-ups. I believe it was like 12, right? At when you were a
10 to 12.
Yeah.
10 to 12.
And it was full range of motion, completely legitimate pull-ups. Like, it was no kipping or half reps going on there. So I think that is a very interesting thing, that you have both the powerlifting strength and the explosiveness, the just general athleticism. Actually, this is a question that, this is just for my indulgence. But what was your vertical leap, would you say, in college? Did you ever get that tested?
I actually did in 2008 when when I worked out for the Falcons and I worked out for the Bears. I had private workouts. It was somewhere in the mid to upper 30 range.
Really?
Honestly, truthfully, I only cared about one measurement, and that was my 5'10", 5. That's the only thing I cared about, and I wanted that. My 5'10", 5.
What's that?
Or the L drill. I'm sorry, the L drill. I'm sorry,
Okay.
the L drill. That was the only thing I cared about at the time, was getting that, as low as I could. And if you ask me now what it was, I don't. I just remember when we worked out for the Bears, there was this old scout. He had to be like 200 years old. And I remember it was me and a group of other guys, because that year in 2008, that was the year the CFL folded. No, Arena League folded. Arena League had folded that year. And I just remember he was mean to everybody who didn't hit a low enough time.
Yeah.
So this cat who played at Oklahoma State was going for me. Here I'm UT Martin, I'm nobody. This cat was telling stories about sacking Vince Young and all that, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in the wrong place. And then he did his drill, and the scout was like, hey, sir, have you graduated yet? And he was like, yes, sir. He was like, good man. Stick with that. Keep that route. And, just told him to go to the side, and then I ran mine. He didn't say nothing to me, but he was like, just stand over here. So I knew I had ran something good, but I was so scared and so nervous, I didn't ask him what I ran. But,
Do you know
my take.
Was that?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you know what your 40-yard dash time was?
Oh, yes. At 3:03, I ran a 4:89.
Wow. That is incredible. That's incredible. I think a lot of people don't realize what a legitimate 40 time is, too. Because it's like 40 time and vertical leap are those two statistics that, everybody thinks that they've ran, a 4.3 40 or a 4.5. It's like they don't realize, a 4.8 40. I mean, right now, that's probably faster than me right now as, a 180-pound man. When you were 303 pounds.
No, I will say this. I had one of the best trainers. His name is Nick Stamper. He's actually still in Jackson, Tennessee now. When I say Coach Stamper, who actually played for the Baltimore Ravens, worked with me, I'm talking just with every aspect of being the best test day guy I could be. And don't get me wrong, if I would have showed up the next day, I probably would have ran a 5 flat or a 5.1. But it's just Coach Stamper worked with me, and he had me prepared to where I could be a great test day dude. He basically had everything lined up. This is what you need to do. This is how much sleep you need to get. This is what you need to eat. And it worked.
Yeah, and speaking of which, that's actually something I really wanted to get into is, I think at this point, you're so strong that in some sense, to some people, it might be unrelatable, or they might think okay, you're training in a different way, because the amount of stress that a single puts, even 90%, is 900 pounds, which is a pretty unreal thought. So what I want to get into, before we get into your training now, is on the climb up, is what specifically was your setup? Did you actually run a specific program? Did you run a starting strength type program, or anything that was powerlifting, a public powerlifting program? Was it all football coaches and individualized? And
it was all. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna
go
say.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if it is individualized, could you get specifically into certain things? Was it twice a week squatting? What were some of the specific points? Was it twice a week squatting with 3 to 5 sets? What was an example workout kind of?
Well, as a GA, as soon as I was done playing, I didn't want to lose my size, because I'm a brother of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and we threw parties. We threw parties every weekend, or we're road tripping to a campus where the bros got a chapter, and I wanted to stay big. I didn't want to get small. I didn't want to be the dude that finished ball, got small, looked terrible. No, so I kept lifting. So what I did was I squatted every day. I benched every day, and I power cleaned every day. That's all I had ever known. And I did that from 2009 all the way up to at least 2011 when I got hired here. what I would do, I would go in, I would work all the way up to, I would squat, I had, regular plates, regular gym plates. So I would go 1 plate for 5, 2 plates for 5, 3 plates for 5, 4 plates for 5, 6 plates for 5. And then once I got to 700, I would hit 700 once or twice and be done with squat. Then I would go to the bench. Then I would bench. I would work my way up to 405. Because I never, and still am, I still am not an elite bencher, but I never saw myself as a good bencher. But I figure if I can hit 405 5 times, I'm okay. So 1 plate, 2 plate, 3 plate, 4 plate, and it was, football benching. I'm bouncing it off my chest. I would get my 405 5 times. Then I would go to power clean. Now, power clean, I would only work up in the gym to about 275, 285. I just didn't see the reason to get all crazy with that. And I would just do everything leading up to 275 for 5 times. Then I would go get on the treadmill. I would jog a very slow mile, and I was done. That was my workout.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I actually think that's a great example, too, because something that bothers me is I think there's this perception that American powerlifters train very old, kind of like what you said, old school. And I actually think a lot of people, in my opinion, a lot of people downplay your knowledge. I well, maybe not downplay it, but they don't understand that you are really into this. It reminds me of when I was at your seminar and asked you about your deadlift volume. And I remember you said you did like 5x5 on conventional deadlifts. Like, you took it very seriously. And I think a lot of people imagine that, like, okay, you're super strong, but whatever you're going to say isn't, necessarily going to apply to other people. Whereas what I've consistently heard from you is that you are methodical. You do take notes. And, Matt Gary, your meet day handler and coach in general, right?
Yes, sir.
He's also very technical. And you can tell when people even link up together that you're thinking on a similar wavelength. And I know Matt Gary, like, trust me, I've met Matt Gary, and he, like, right away gave me a book, gave me a talk. Like, I know how he is. So I can tell if you get along with him, like, you're about it. But I also specifically just think that's a good example of a lot of people talk about, actually there was a study about Norwegian powerlifters training frequently, full body. A lot of people think that Russians train with smarter periodization than kind of the old school Americans. I think you're a great example of you did train full body. You did train with a high frequency. And it's actually pretty interesting that Russell Orhe in the 83s, he also came from a similar background of squatting every day. So I actually think that's a really fascinating correlation, because I could say you two are at the top.
But the crazy thing is, I didn't do it for powerlifting. I was just doing it because, like, one thing I found that I struggled with was no matter how much, because at first, before I really got into the lifting, I tried the running route. So I would always run. Like, I got to the point where I could run 3 miles a day, but it was slow. I'm not going. It was a slow, steady 3 miles. But I realized I'm not losing any weight, and I kind of came to the realization that, I'm a muscular dude. I've always had big traps. I've always had big thighs. I'm going to have to lose muscle, man, and I don't want to do that. Yeah. So how about this? Let's scale back to running, and I'm just going to, like, do, like, some of the training we used to do as football players. But I had no – it wasn't for powerlifting. It was just because I didn't want to be a big dude that wasn't strong. You ever been in the grocery store, you saw a dude, and you like – oh my God! If you lifted a little bit, it was. I never wanted to be that dude. Somebody look at me and be like, God, dude, if you just a little bit, So I always lifted, and the reason I started out with the 5x5 thing, this was before I knew anything about powerlifting. I did that because it was a challenge. Like standing there with 600 pounds on your back trying to hit it 5 times, you realize, man, I'm tired. And then you get into powerlifting. I get into powerlifting, and people are saying the same. Man, if you get above 5 reps, bro, it's cardio. It don't matter what the weight is. Anything above 5 reps is cardio. And, I'm sitting up here like, man, so I was pushing myself, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just in the gym lifting. And then at the time, I was single. I didn't. I only had to worry about me. I didn't have a specific time to be home. So you know what? I'm gonna do what I do.
Yeah. So do you know? That's actually something I want to ask too. Is that do you know the specific number that you reached where you realized you're at a different level, where you're like nobody in my school or even in football? Because I think there are certain groups where you're like, okay, I'm just training for football. Then you realize, like, I'm literally stronger than everybody I know in this area. What was that like for you?
It actually happened by mistake. I was competing in, well, no, actually it was when I got a membership at the gym down the street. And, you know, I went in and I like, my goal, I'm going to squat 800. And, you know, everybody kind of, you're not going to squat 800. And I'm like, okay, because I knew for a fact I had done like 770 at the school weight room where we trained our football team. So I'm like, okay. So I did a little meet. I hit 800, and everybody was like, all right, you need to, because it was APA. And it was my first meet. It was, to me, I was terrible. But a guy was like, look, man, you've got something. You should look into lifting here. And I went down to Mobile, Alabama, and my goal was to squat 1,000 at the Alabama State Championship, USAPL. It was my first USAPL meet. So I go down there, and the meet director, Mr. Darryl Haskell, pulls me to the side. We don't have 1,000 pound weight because it was the regular plates. And they had hundreds, so it was like, we can't fit that on the bar. He was like, we can get about 905. And I hit the 905, and, you know, I'm thinking, you know, I'm a dude that, you know, I work at a junior college in Mississippi. This ain't special. So I hit the 905. I took a step. It didn't count for nothing. But I stood up with it. I hit it. Next thing I know, everybody who was a powerlifter is coming up, shaking my hand, congratulating me. Man, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, okay, you know, I'm just, you know, I didn't know what it was until the video hit YouTube. Next thing I know, it's got like 1 million views, and I'm like,
you're
wow.
being humble. No, because trust me, I know the chronology exactly, because it's not just YouTube. That was on World Star. That's because I remember that was on World Star Hip Hop. I remember seeing that, thinking like, I can't believe a powerlifter is on World Star Hip Hop. Like, you were transcending the regular categories. I mean, that 905 was on there. And
this was before knee sleeves, any of that. Like, it was just me and a belt. Like, no knee sleeves, no nothing. Just me and a belt.
So when that happened, the reaction to that, how did that impact you mentally? Like were people around you hyping that up? Like, yeah, I saw you get 1 million views. Or was it the opposite, where it's like, okay, you're still just a guy from the town? Like what did it feel like?
My mentality was, you know, like, all right, this YouTube, like, all right, this is blowing up on social media, but, you know, like, if it's not going to take me to the Olympics or something super special, then I really just don't care. I'm just going to go back to the lab. My goal was to hit 1,000, and that's what I'm going to do. Like, I really didn't even care that they told me the 905 didn't, like, count as a state record. I don't care. I mean, I hit 900. I didn't die. So in my mind, I hit it. So, hey, it is what it is. So next, 1,000. Yeah. And then I go down, I get a call like, look, man, you really should go to Orlando, Florida and do Open Nationals. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So we go to Orlando, and it blew my mind when I got there. It was like, yo, the world record right now is 860 pounds. And I'm like, no, it's not. And it was like, yes, it is. So I'm like, all right. So then now I got a goal. Now I'm locked in, keyed in on something. And I trained to beat that record. I did. And then that's when I started to kind of grow into powerlifting.
Yeah. Yeah, so this actually really connects to something I also wanted to know about was there any tension between you and the old guard within the USAPL at around this time? Because I remember specifically you had a battle, I believe it probably was that meet you're talking about in Florida, where you had a battle with Blaine Sumner, right? And was there any tension where you're the new guy, you know, I think Blaine Sumner's already kind of, he's still around the same age as you, I believe, but he was like, he's kind of been in there. He's been equipped. I actually do remember a time where people wanted you to be equipped because they were saying like, okay, look, here's where the best lifters are at, kind of the Norway lifters. The IPF world scene used to be equipped. So was there ever a moment where there was tension, where it was like maybe the USAPL was kind of like pushing back and skeptical of you, or was it open arms the whole time?
No, I think I never felt any tension or beef between me and anybody. Like whenever I go to meets, it feels like all love. And then on top of that, I just think it was the fact that I came out of nowhere. Like Blaine was the world champion. He won the first Open Worlds. He was a world champion. He had been powerlifting before. He was way more established than I was. So you really can't question. I'm not gonna say you can't, but you really can't look at his strength and be like, well, this just didn't come out of nowhere. No, he's been doing it. He's established. Whereas you got this cat from Mississippi who just in the past 2 meets squatted, more weight than, a lot of people are used to seeing. Let's make sure he's not doping before we embrace him. And I think, once people found out that I'm natural, I'm not doing anything illegal, then I felt like it was easier for people to, embrace me as the new person.
Yeah, so when looking this up, I actually looked up that, so the first meet where you squatted with wraps was in the APA, correct?
Yes.
I believe
yes.
So how did you specifically find out that the USAPL even exists? What was
when I did that meet, I was done power. Like after I left the APA meet, I was done powerlifting because everybody got an award. Like everybody got something. That floored me because I'm a football player. I won state championship in football. I've won multiple state championships throwing the shot put, and I won a conference championship in college. And, I'm sitting back like I'm used to the best getting awards, not everybody. That to me that diminishes the work you put in. If I know I can sit on the couch, do absolutely nothing, show up, pay my money, do nothing on the platform, and still get an award for it, that diminishes the guy that gave up time with his family, buying protein, spending lots of money on certain foods so his body can operate at the most efficient level. Like that diminishes this guy's work. If the person that did nothing, the guy on the other end of the spectrum, if he walks away with something too, like I didn't like that. So I'm like, man, this powerlifting thing ain't for me. And then I got to Googling, me and my brother got to Googling, and the very first person that popped up on my screen was Mr. Henry Thompson, who was an equipped lifter. Really? And we learned about the USAPL, learned that it was drug tested because I had heard a lot of, nonsense about, well, all those strong dudes, they're on something. They're just real smart about it. And, even today, I still get that. Well, you're on something. I mean, you got to think, you with the technology today, you can dope up and get clean. Like, no, bro, that's dialysis and a lot of other extreme stuff that I ain't willing to do to my body. So, no. But anyway, the USAPL was the best tested, was the best option for me. It was tested, and there were a lot of meets in my area. So I just, it just seemed like the best thing to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What I also want to ask about is, how did you shift mentally when it became clear that you were becoming the face of the sport? I mean, you really went from being a strong guy, from making noise, from like, hey, the record's a little bit lower than I think. You mentioned the 905 where you stumbled. I actually also remember you squatted like 938 or 942, something around there, and you also stumbled, and that didn't count. It was
yes,
yeah.
It was at it was at it was in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. It was after Mobile. It was in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. It was at a gym owned by a gentleman named John Micah, and it was like 950, if I'm not mistaken. I squatted it, I stood up, and when I first started, I was so undisciplined. I got to the top, and it was just programmed in me from years of squatting as a football player. As soon as you lock those hips out, walk it in, and it just naturally would happen, like without thinking.
Yeah.
And I squatted 950 at Mr. Micah's gym down in Hattiesburg.
Yeah, so what I want to ask is, how did you transition from being, I would say you were a phenomenal athlete, you were still winning basically every meet, but there was still this sense of like, okay, there are certain moments where it's like, okay, yes, potentially is this or that. You went from that to, there was definitely this streak where you honestly never missed. Like you never went below what people expected. I mean, you went from, I still remember how rapidly you went from squatting 909 to 1,080 was unreal. I mean, you just went to this point where every big meet you would perform better at. And I think for the thing that some people, who are subscribed to my channel maybe don't realize is just how different it really is to lift at Worlds. Because I was at the 2014 Worlds in South Africa, and I remember how you'd warm up in outdoors, basically, and to indoor.
It was like in stalls.
Yeah. So mentally, how did you handle? It's not just one thing. You're both performing the best at big meets, and you are the show. I mean, at every single meet, pretty much until you decide to retire, you are the main guy. And I could say that from personal experience that at the end of the meet, it is all just everybody's talking about, like, okay, Ray's gonna squat. How did you mentally handle being the face of the sport? And was it that you handled it very well due to maturity, or was it just like, hey, you have real life stuff to deal with anyways, and then like, this is just no big deal? Or was it like, no, this is a big deal, I just can handle it because I'm that type of athlete?
To be honest with you, I sort of kind of just, powerlifting, lifting heavy, that's my happy place. Like, and that's, a huge reason why, majority of the relationships I've been in, my first marriage didn't work out because I like being in the gym. And, the gym is my sanctuary. Like, me and my dad joke. My dad, we'll talk on Sunday when I'm on my way to the gym. He'll be, are you on your way to church? Yep. On my way to the sanctuary. And it's like, that's my happy place. And when I go to these meets, like, what a lot of people, don't actually know is when I go to a meet, I look at it, I'm the dude I'm about to go pick up this check that I've been working for 5 months. And really, truthfully, I just block everything out. Like, how people may view me, I don't see that, because all I see is I got to get this payday. I've been working for 5 months. I've been sacrificing time away from my boys. I've been taking personal time away from myself. I've been cramming powerlifting into spots that it shouldn't be in. Like, prime example, as a doctoral candidate, I would have to drive. I would have to work all day. Then my boss, the head coach, would let me go at around 1, 2 o'clock. So I got to be in class by 5. So I book it. Memphis is 2 hours from here. So I drive from Memphis, from Fulton to Memphis. That's 2 hours. I get to class about 4:45, depending on Memphis traffic. I sit in class for 3 hours. Class is from 5 to 8. I get out of class at 8. I go to a gym in Memphis called MBS Fitness. It's owned by Mr. David West. I go there. I work out there for 4 hours. Now it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I still got a 2-hour drive. So I drive 2 hours home. I get to bed right around 3, 4 a.m., maybe even 5. The sun is coming up when I lay down. I got to pop right back up at 7, 8 a.m. to do it all over again. So it like, all of the notoriety, none of that really meant much to me, because I'm working so much harder. I'm working so hard on behind the scenes to get to where I'm going, That's all I'm focused on, is getting to where I'm going. That's why this past June, that huge letdown in Sweden, that's why, that's not okay with me.
Yeah, that actually brings me to what I want to talk about now, which is, what are your current goals now? Like, let's say, especially for 2021 Raw Nationals, since due to the pandemic, there's no Raw Nationals this year. Actually, I'll give a more specific question too. Is what is your next meet going to be? Are you most likely? You don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah. So because I honestly. Nobody really knows even if they sign up for a meet, if it'll actually happen. But let's say 2021 Raw Nationals, because we're pretty confident, hopefully, that happens. Hopefully, for that meet, what are your goals? Are we looking at a 500 kilogram squat in Ray Williams' future?
That's the goal. I was for the past couple of squat workouts, I would stream it live on Instagram Live, and I told everybody prior to this training cycle, my best beltless squat was around 815, 825, and the one week I had 360. 360 is 793. Well, I'm the type of person, I like to make stuff look good. So the little silver chips, I would put all the Rogue silver chips. I would put one of the 1.25 kilos and two of the 0.5. I would put them on everything I squat. Everything. Just because it makes the bar look good. You got to make it look good. So it bumps it up to about 803. Well, I misloaded the bar because Bar Calc app only works on iPhone, and if you got an Android phone, the app is called Bar Loader. So I put it in the Bar Loader app, and what I thought was the 5 kilo, the white plate, it actually was the black one. So I put the white one on there, and that bumped it up until the 820s, 30s. Right. So I did 820ish, 30ish for like 4x4 with no belt.
Wow.
So, as of right now, where my training is progressing now, I'm probably as strong and still working on some technical issues because I honestly think I'm carrying a lot less body fat than I did when I hit the 1080. So I'm still kind of relearning my leverages. But I'm probably as strong as I've ever been in my life at the squat right now.
Yeah, and I actually think something that is a good sign, and it's a harsh way of putting it, but it is genuinely a good sign, is you had that strength loss so quickly that you're probably going to regain it back as quickly. Where I actually think it would have been a bigger problem had you had an issue and it was more training related, like long-term training related. But actually, I want you to go into that because I know you've talked about this on your Instagram Live as far as the illness. But to those who don't watch your Instagram, don't follow you that much, and let me throw this gossip out at you, is there are so many people, especially on YouTube, who are like, Ray Williams off cycle. He's off cycle. That's why he lost his strength, because he had to go off, even though it was equal conditions to like everything else. Now this one time they're hunting. The one time you fall. So what do you have to say to people who have those skeptical eyes on you?
And to comment, to push on that, there's actually a video that's the headline, what happened to Ray Williams? Is he now? Yeah. So, it kind of pissed me off because my son found that video. My son sent me that video. And what happened to Ray Williams was simple as, and I'm not going to throw the restaurant's name out there because I ain't trying to get sued. I was at the airport. I was in a hurry. So, I did something I typically don't do. I ate at a restaurant I'd never eaten at. So I stopped by a little restaurant in the airport, and nice little lady, she fixed my food. I ate the food, And like 30 minutes later, I actually posted a picture on Instagram. It was me with a black and white road shirt on saying, "Here I come, Sweden." In that picture, when I took that picture, I started feeling funny.
Really?
So I'm like, I feel weird. Right. But, I didn't pay any mind to it. I had to drive 2 hours to Memphis. It's early in the morning. So I'm like, I'm just, I'm sleep deprived. So get to Sweden. No, actually, it was before I even got to Sweden. I just broke out in like massive sweats and my stomach started hurting. Didn't know what it was. I didn't want to eat anything. All I wanted to do was drink. So I get to the first stop in Sweden before I hopped on the USAPL, IPF transport. When I got there, I just noticed like my stomach is like really hurting. Like, like I ain't trying to be funny, but it felt like I was having like period cramps or something. Like it was really hurting. Yeah. So I get to the hotel, I try to eat dinner, I throw it up like 2 minutes later. And I'm like, this ain't right. So I go get a whole bunch of orange juice and all that. So I'm like, I got to get this out of me. So pretty much from the time I left Memphis until like the night before the meet, there was a little Chinese spot. I ate at the Chinese spot. I managed to keep that down. I lost a good, oh my God, like 15, 20 pounds just in the 2 days before the meet.
Wow.
Because I sent Coach Garrett a picture. When I left Fulton, Mississippi, I was 416. When I got to Sweden, I was under 400 pounds. Wow. I had lost that much weight that fast. Wow. And got back home. I bombed out, of course. I bombed out. It was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. But, huge shout out to the powerlifting community. I think, at my lowest point, like people, I had over 300 messages from people just like, keep your head up, you're going to bounce back, you're still the champ, so on and so forth. It just made me feel good, to be embraced by the powerlifting community. I think that was one of the first times it really hit me that, man, people actually like you. So I get home. I try to get back to my regular life. It's not working. So one day my wife looks at me, we got to do something. So I go up to Med Plus. They do some blood work, and she was like, something is wrong. You need to go to the emergency room. So I go to the emergency room. They do blood work. Me and my wife sit at the hospital for like 8 to 10 hours. The lady comes back. She tells me I have some foodborne pathogen. And she was like, whatever it is, it's linked to fecal matter. So she was like, basically what the doctor told me was, wherever you ate, the person went to the restroom, they didn't clean their hands very well, and that ended up in your digestive system, and it messed you up pretty bad. The only thing is, the only reason I couldn't take any legal action because I couldn't prove it. I couldn't prove that that's where I got it from. But I know that's where I got it from. So, lost a whole bunch of weight, bounced back, got back in the gym, and here I am today, and hi, haters.
Did you have a lever belt for that, or did you have an adjustable belt? Because I would imagine at that point, that late in the game, that changes your whole feeling of everything. I think the casual fan may hear that and go like, yeah, that's a factor, but then not realize it's not just a factor because of how you're feeling, because of your strength. It's like what you said about leverages. It's like that changes the tempo of your squat, the feeling of your squat, how your depth is at warm-ups. Yeah, so that's huge.
And the crazy thing is, you're not lying, because my last warm-up was 9:03, and I took it, and like weeks before, I had did 9:03. What was it? I did 9:03 for like 7 sets of 3 or 4, like 3 or 4 weeks before Worlds, and it's just like, this should not be hard. Matter of fact, I did 1,063 at Rogue headquarters a week and a half out from Worlds. Like, I flew up there, I squatted at Rogue headquarters, I hit 1,063, and I even posted about it. And it's just like, this shouldn't be hard. So I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what.
Yeah.
And aside from all that, what hurt me the most was the fact that Jezza won his first world championship, and everybody else was so busy pointing fingers at me, saying, "Oh, you're this, you're off your cycle, you bombed out, it's over for you. Good, you had a good run." Like, I felt like that dude didn't get his proper shine. Like, let's focus on the guy that won, not the guy that bombed out.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like it's kind of a testament to how much you are the face of the sport, that people will make the story about you regardless. And yeah, I do agree with you that it's just not right to Jezza, and especially since Jezza's had some meets where things didn't go his way, as far as the meet where he got called on soft knees when it looked like he was just standing there. He's had some things kind of break the other way, and it's actually pretty interesting as far as competition wise, that overall it seems like you've been able to establish this dominance. That I completely believe that you'll retain right away. And within the U.S., you still won nationals even while just recovering from all of that.
I won that by great coaching and a lot of luck.
And so what do you a humble way to put it? What do you value as far as the long run? Let me give you two scenarios. Let me say one scenario is you win more golds than any IPF lifter ever has. Now, to be fair, I believe a lighter weight class lifter, I know Lamar Gant is way up there, and there's another lighter class lifter, I believe he's an Asian lifter, I'm sorry for forgetting his name, but I believe he's around there too, like 16, 17, something crazy. So let's say you have a scenario where you, Ray Williams, win 20 IPF gold medals, whether that be 20 at super heavyweights or 20 maybe at super and then 120, wherever you take it. Would you rather win 20 IPF gold medals but have your world record squat broken, or retain the all-time greatest squat but you win only 3 more and then that's it? Which would you rather have?
I would rather have the squat. I would rather be the top squatter. And it's I heard a preacher say this a long time ago, that when you work so hard to stay on top of the mountain, you become the mountain. And my deal is, if you've got that top spot, people will always be chasing that number trying to break that number. Whereas if I just win multiple golds, well, what if I'm in a class that's not competitive? Or what if it gets to the point where I'm just the oldest strong guy? I'm the strongest old guy. Like I'm a master's, but I'm still able to squat in the 9s, and I can still deadlift in the 8s. I'm just the strongest old guy. But if I got that number, that beautiful squat number, then that means that everybody who wants to be the best all-time squatter is chasing that number.
Yeah, so speaking of which, especially competition across everybody for the biggest all-time squatter, what do you say to people who compare your squat to Andrey Milanichev or Vlad, who's also squatted, I believe it was around 500 kilograms. I think Vlad may have broken that a little bit, 505, but with reps untested. So when you see that happen, is there any part of you that just thinks like, I just want to throw the wraps on and just squat 515? Is there any part of you that considers that?
No, I actually look at those people, people who compare, IPF lifters to people who squat in wraps that don't squat tested and all that. I kind of look at them with the side eye, because my deal is I got blasted, drugged through the burning muck, because people were like, "Oh, you're off your cycle, blah, blah, blah." But those same people that say that in the same breath will praise somebody who squats in wraps untested. Praise these people. Like, bruh, like, pick a side. Like, you bash me because you thought I was tested or you thought I was dirty when I was breaking all my records. But you praise people who you know aren't tested and possibly could be on other substances. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't get it. So my whole thing is, when I see those lists, I don't even pay them any attention. I really don't, because to me that's stupid. You're undermining people's work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, wow, that's like me. That's like me. That's a perfect example. That's like me and you. If me and you are drag racing, and you got a stock car, but I pull up in something with a V12 and it's all souped up. I got knives, but I expect you, even after I know I'm gonna beat you, even after I beat you, I criticize you just as though me and you were on the same launching pad. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that. Actually, you know what's funny is that's actually a very similar thing culturally to YouTube. Is even YouTube fitness outside of powerlifting, it's always the guys who are openly on steroids that then say everybody's on it anyways, to kind of like bring everyone down, knock everyone off any pedestal, and then nobody hates on them for their choice. Rather than,
because they're honest. I mean, at least we know they're on steroids.
Yeah, exactly. It creates this weird paradigm where they think like, okay, so you're the snake oil salesman, they're the real deal for admitting that they're doing. It's like it's a weird way of dragging everyone down, as if it's impossible. And I think one of the main points that I actually do think people are progressing on this, where people are realizing that differences among people is impossible to just limit. You can't just say, and I think you know this very well, and I would also give credit to Russell Orhe as far as being around football players, being around athletes, where you know there's some people who do things that people wouldn't believe is possible. That in with God-given talent. And then, like, let's say some football players, obviously a handful of football players probably use steroids. I mean, that's a given, that when big money's on the line, probably a ton. But still, those people who are that talented, even when they start out, it's kind of like Kai Green when he's natural, or Ronnie Coleman when before he hopped on. Ronnie Coleman was a freak. I mean, he was a guy where if I used everything on the planet, I would never look like a natural Ronnie Coleman at 21 years old. That some people have it and some people don't.
Very true.
Yeah.
Genetics does play a big part in it.
Yeah, and I think American athletes too. I think they're more athletes, honestly, than some other countries.
No doubt.
Yeah, but speaking of comparisons, something I wanted to ask you about, and is actually pretty funny to me, is the fact that when it comes to IPF points versus good lift points versus Wilks, there was a period of time where the IPF used IPF points, right? And I had a higher IPF points than you at any point, like your best total ever. I had higher IPF points while being ninth in my weight class, which I've just failed hilarious, because obviously I would never make that comparison. Like, you are a way better powerlifter than me in every facet. So I'm just gonna say that for you if you don't want to say it. So what do you think about the IPF changing the formula so often? They've kind of corrected with good lift points, but you're still, in my opinion, you're still ranked too low. Like, you're ranked like 17th or 20th or something, when, you know, I think I would say you're for sure top 5 on an off year, and then you're number 1 on any other year. So what do you think about the changes? Do you think they're making too many changes and that they should have kept with Wilks, or do you think they should just get rid of all coefficients?
If you want to know the truth, this is like really embarrassing.
Yeah.
I didn't even know until this moment. I didn't even know they had changed. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the whole, at the end of the day, you have one thing at the end of the day. And what I mean by that is like, what are you doing this for? Are you doing this because you want to win a lot of medals? Oh, I've done that. Do you want to do it because you want to break records and so on and so forth? You know, I mean, you have to ask yourself, what will give me that self-actualization that I'm looking for? For me, when I set a goal, that's how I get that. Like, honestly, it really don't matter what the coefficient formula is. When I compete, I'm not really competing to, if I never win another world championship again, it is what it is. But I'm going to squat 500 kilograms. That's the goal. That's the goal right now. And that's what I have. That's all I've got right now. I feel like when people, and this is just me, I feel like when you cloud what you're doing so much and you get to looking at the coefficients and all that now, instead of focusing on sharpening my tools and becoming a better lifter, now I also got to take a peek at the dude from Russia or the dude from Norway or the dude from God knows wherever, because he's on my tail. Even though I know I'm the stronger lifter, he's on my tail because of this formula. So the way I look at it, you kind of got to pick your poison. And for me, I just focus on my goals. Honestly, truthfully, I couldn't tell you how to calculate any of these formulas. I really don't. That's why, I cling to Matt Gary. That's what he do. Like, he's the calculator guy. Like, if you ever seen him in a meet, he's got a whole bunch of those attempt slips, a pencil, and it's calculated. Yeah. I just show up and lift. Like, that's, at the end of the day, that's what I do this for. And to me, when it gets clouded with all that other stuff, then it's time to go find something else to be great at.
Yeah, that's a good point. And speaking of your training and coaching, let's get into the specifics of your training style now. As the best super heavyweight lifter in the world, best squatter on the planet, how long are your training cycles? Let's start with that.
Coach Gary has me on 4 to 5 week training cycles. I deload anywhere, like I said, between 4 and 5 weeks. We build on a simple linear progression week by week, and if we feel like we need to pump the brakes a little bit, we do. I listen to my body more, so that definitely affects what my training looks like. Used to be when I was younger, a little bit more resilient. You hurt something, you train through it. But, now as we get older, you can't do that because those little minute injuries become chronic. Mm-hmm. So, it's basically, it's really not complicated. It's just if you watch the videos, you look at the numbers, like, man, he squatted just, you think it's complicated, but it's really not.
So what do you squat, let's say rep range progression wise? What do you do? So let's say it's a 5-week cycle. On week 1, are you hitting something like 8s, or do you start out pretty low reps the entire way through?
Higher reps, lower sets, probably beltless for the first couple of weeks, just to kind of build the body. The belts and knee sleeves and all that only should complement the body. They should only be used as an assisting tool. You shouldn't depend on them. When you get to the point where you're depending on something, then that means you need to pump the brakes, back up a little bit, and work on, your actual body, your actual strength level.
So what does that look? So let's say, does that mean the first 2 weeks of a cycle you're squatting completely beltless the entire 2 weeks, or are you talking just reps after a heavier squat with the belt?
Probably entirely for the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's interesting. Also, one question, and this is out of my interest, is do you do singles each week and then the back off work, or do you just save up on the singles for just the end?
I hate back off work, like, because for me, I put so much into my work sets that even though you're taking weight off the bar, like mentally, like that neurological fatigue, it's already there. Like by the time I get to that last set, like I'm mentally exhausted. Like, even though my body probably still can go, like, if I'm not focused, I don't want to do it because that's how you end up getting hurt. So I just work up to my working sets and say that's it.
Okay. So how many sets do you do on a typical day? Is it like 2 to 3? Or is it just one big set?
We like the earlier it's, you know, a lot of sets, and we kind of taper off as we climb the progression.
Okay. Sorry, my phone dropped there. And then one of the last technical ones is what exactly is your squat frequency now? For, let's say, squat, bench, deadlift, just of those three, what is your exact, like, weekly frequency? Is it 2 times a week?
Once a week. Once a week.
On all 3?
I do all core lifts once a week, and I blow it out on accessory work.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, that is something I also wanted to get into, is when you said you box squatted earlier, do you think the box squats helped you as far as the foundation, or do you think that was just a negative, like, detour?
If we would have did it right, it would have been a positive, but being that we were, like, in high school, most of the time we were bouncing out the box, it definitely reinforced a lot of bad habits, and just, you know, I think the boxes were too tall.
Yeah.
So you're generating a lot of speed into a tall box, and, you know, I saw a lot of dudes, you know, they hit the box and you can see their back just bend, like, and I'm like, God, like, now that I think back, I'm glad nobody really got seriously injured.
Yeah.
But, you know, we from the country, you know, that's what we do. You know what I'm saying?
So what accessories do you find give you the most carryover now?
Anything involving my back, my quads, and my hamstring, like the gross muscles.
Like, if you had to,
I think,
pick 2, what would your top 2 be for the squat?
Damn, that's not fair. If I had to pick 2, I'm gonna say, and you honestly, you need 3.
Okay, 3.
But for the sake, hammies, quads, and back.
Man, I want specific, like, what 3 lifts? Like, give me exactly. You're talking like leg extension. You're talking that. I've seen you do the belt squat. You got that belt squat set up.
Definitely my belt squat, leg extensions, and pull downs.
Okay, that's an interesting combination. Yeah, it's interesting. It's because a lot of people perceive that leg extensions are kind of this fluff lift, but here you are, the biggest squatter of all time, and you do leg extensions as, you know, a major accessory, right? And,
regularly.
Yeah. Do you think that also has to do with the fact that to work up to heavy set is so much work that you need something that's lighter to just get that pump, to get some muscle exhaustion? Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
that's you hit it right on the head. That's it, right on the head. That's all that needs to be said. What you just said is all that needs to be said.
So the last
exactly right.
The last technical question is, when it comes to your taper, is I've heard word around the block is that you taper really late or really early relative to other people. Because, like, someone like myself who's a smaller lifter, who's doing less stress to his body overall because it's just lighter weight. Mm-hmm. I taper literally 5 days out. What time do you taper out? What time do you hit your last, like, really, like, heavy squat workout before meet?
Like a week and a half.
Week and a half?
Like, just because by the time you get to that heavy squat, you got to think, like, we're walking in the valley of 1,000 pounds, so your body is, like, on the verge of, like, if you keep going, we ain't gonna make it. So I taper down. Like, most people, they'll do their openers. Like you said, they'll do their openers like 5 days out. Like, I don't even do that anymore. I hit my big numbers. I clean up my diet. You know, not saying I eat sloppily, but I try to make sure I'm eating good stuff, and I stay intense on the accessory movement. Yeah. Because you can get the same. You can't get. I'm not gonna say you can get the same amount of work and accessory work, but you can keep those muscles strong.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. I actually think what you're saying is really backed by research, in my opinion, even more now, as far as because a lot of people talk about the idea of effective reps, that it has to be in a certain proximity to failure, and that's actually even gaining more popularity now than before. And it makes total sense that for someone like you, it's like if you were to hit multiple sets with only 3 reps in the tank on squat, I mean, you'd have to be squatting 800 plus every single session for anything. Actually, I do want to ask before I move on from this does that ever make you as mind blown as I am at Jeza Uepa's front squats being so close to meets? Because I've seen that where he front squats like 400 kilograms, like 4 days out. Do you ever look at that and just go, I don't know how that works? Or I mean, honestly, without being insulting, do you ever look at that and go like, I think if you rested a little bit more with us, big boys, maybe the peak would go a little bit better.
I know why he does it. Like you said, scientifically, I know why he does it. But, being, like me and my brother, we have a saying, like, if we ain't got it, you ain't finna find it. And that's always been my mentality. Like, if I ain't got it 2 weeks out, I'm damn sure not gonna have it 5 days away. So, I just never been a proponent of that. Like, it's just, like when I get there, I want to like mentally chill. I don't want to like get crunk or even think about the meat.
Yeah.
Like to the point where I'm wearing myself out mentally until I'm in the warm-up room.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Now, don't get me wrong. He gangster for doing it, man.
It's interesting because it's like I've seen, and I'm really saying this as a fan, as someone who's seen you in person. I mean, over and over again, win these big meets. There is this sense that other people can hit a faster opener, a lot of things better, a lot of it like kind of intimidating training leading up. It is pretty incredible how consistent your peaks have been. Where it's like, I mean, like I said, that streak, and I mean, honestly, you really don't let that last, meet, that last Worlds get to you or like affect you at all mentally, because it's like, I'm telling you, your run, I'm sure you already know it, but your run was truly unprecedented. Whereas like every time, there's even a time where you squatted, right? I kid you not, I was actually talking with JP Cutchy, an Australian lifter, and I remember thinking like, I'm of, your fan first and foremost, but I remember thinking like, I was like, I think Jeza might overtake Ray on the squat at least, and his was a lot faster. Yours looked like okay. You did the thing where you kind of controlled it at the top a lot, and then you just blew up the third, and then I think he missed. So it's like the way you time it, you can definitely tell it's like you really save up that energy for the third attempt. And I think you do it better than, honestly, anyone ever has.
I made a post about this the other day. Like, we as lifters, we always get all the glory, but I promise you that's all Coach Gary. Like, he sits and he watches everything. He watches everything. So when we get there, he's looking out that curtain, and he's like, he'll come back to me. He'll like, I think we got this, but this is how we're gonna get there. And me, I'm like I said, I got 5 months of training in the tank. I'm literally busting at the seams. I'm like, no, let's load it up. Let's go do. Like, listen to me. It'll be, this is what we got to do. This is what I think is going to happen. And I promise you, for the majority of the times we've been together, he's always right. Like, so if you see me just like come out of nowhere, like you just said, it's 9 times out of 10, Coach Gary sat there, he's worked the scenarios, he's wrote it down on the back of one of those little warm-up slips, and he comes with his calculator. This is what we got to do to get out of squat ahead. And once we get out of squat, he'll always say, we got to hit our benches, and we can have fun on the deadlift. Yeah. And that's typically what we do.
Yeah, we're approaching the home stretch here pretty soon. But I first have a few more of the present day questions before we'll get into some fun questions, by the way, which will be just completely kind of like mindless, just you can answer whatever type things. But as far as your 490 kilogram squat, And on top of this, as far as the spotters being regular people, typically kids, not typically kids, often kids, like too often kids, without being too negative here. What mindset are you in when you are going to attempt a squat that literally no human has ever attempted? No human has ever squatted that from Paul Anderson to now. And there's got to be part of your mind that truly doesn't know what would happen if you missed it. I mean, there are some weights where, I don't know, I watch you squat. I watched you squat right after. I was there for the Kelly Branton incident where he had the spotters, and it was like he basically was like shaking around, and
and then he bent backwards. Yeah.
You squatted. Did you squat right after? I think you were the next. Were you the next lifter or the lifter after the next lifter?
I was the lifter after the next lifter because it was me. Jezza broke the world record. Then I came right after him and broke it again. So
what is your mindset like with that, and let's say with the 1,080? How are you thinking? Just like, look, are you thinking? Is any part of you thinking, if I miss this might get ugly, or are you just totally thinking like, no, I'm not even gonna consider that. Like, I got this.
If you're thinking that at all, you ain't gonna get it. Like that's why on the top of the monolift I got at the gym, it's squat or die, and that I believe that's the country part of me coming out, because think about it. If I miss in training, 9 times out of 10, I don't have people with me. Like, it's gonna be ugly. Like right now, I got a combo rack in the room that I train in. If I miss, I die. I miss, I go to the emergency room. So, and
you have gone over your finger, right? Didn't you hurt your finger one time?
Yeah, I actually ripped it was like a Pez dispenser. I tore the top skin and the nail bed completely off. The finger is still ugly to this day. But it's one of those things where when you get under 490, like, I promise you, that was the most disappointing success of my life, because if I didn't miss Q on the second attempt, I would have hit 500 then. But we don't talk about that. But I'm just when I get to the third attempt, I'm so dialed in. And then you set up and you take that time to make sure that this is the perfect setup. So when you commit and you take the bar off the rack, like I can't explain the feeling, but it's like you're looking at 1,080 pounds, but it don't feel like 1,080 pounds, and your adrenaline is going, and it's to the point where when you look past the judge, you don't see. It's just like a blur. So what I do when I'm squatting, I stare at that judge's. I stare like, and this is gonna sound weird, but I stare at his feet. Like my eyes, even though it may appear that I'm staring straight ahead, I'm staring at his feet. And then once he drops his hand and I see his hand go down by his feet, snap that head back and just go. Like, it's hard to, I understand people are going to look at this like, what the hell is he talking about? But it's hard to put in words, all that emotion. Because like I said, what are you doing this for? I'm doing this for X. And it's hard to explain when you're actually in the moment and you're doing X. Like, those emotions, the fit, like, it's stupid. But I don't think about nothing. Like, failure's not an option. Like, and even though, sometimes, circumstances may occur that may be beyond your control, and failure happens. But the day that I attempted 490, like, it couldn't have been a better setup.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember seeing you squat. I didn't see the 490 in person. I don't think so. But I've seen most of them, and I remember, I do remember, it's like, it almost feels like the energy in the room transfers to you. Like, I remember you literally, like, shouting out something, while walking it back with the weight on your back. Like when you do that, is it just like almost an out of body moment where you're just in the zone and you don't even think about what you're saying and you're just in there?
Yeah, because you'll go back, you'll watch the video, you'll be like, damn, I really said that.
Yeah, I would still remember to this day you squatting with Nuck If You Buck playing in the background.
Yeah, like people say it was Nuck If You Buck.
It was it? Don't tell me it wasn't.
The lady on the oh my God. No, you're right. It was Nuck If You Buck, but CBS Sports played the video, and the commentator lady was like, "He's squatting to the stanky leg." Like that's totally not that song.
Yeah, I wouldn't get that wrong. Trust me. I listened to too much rap to make that. That's a rookie mistake.
Yeah, so I was like, no, that's not that, man.
Okay, so let's talk about. Well, before we get into the fun questions, let's talk about one last serious one. What is your plan body weight wise for the next 5 years and for the next 10 years? So do you have the plan to ride this thing out as long as you can increase your squat, just to wherever it goes? Or is there a plan that there's a certain time where you're going to shift gears? For myself, for example, I actually plan on moving to 74 kilograms after a few years, just because it's like, I want to be ripped. I want to be lean. It is kind of like what you're saying, where powerlifting gives you a lot, but at the same time, it's like, it doesn't really like matter necessarily that much as far as your whole life to where you have to do it. So the question is, for yourself, would there ever be a point where you say, like, look, being 420 pounds is when you perform the best, 419, right? Somewhere around there?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Is there a point where you're like, look, after 5 years, I want to then cut down? Or is it just like, look, I'll take it wherever it goes? And, like, I mean, to be fair, you're literally making history. Would you keep going as long as you can make history? Or is there a point where you and maybe your family goes like, okay, at this point, we'll make this shift?
It'll definitely be a family decision. Like right now, I have no plans on doing anything. As long as my body and health permit, I'm gonna do what I do. Yeah. But if I ever, when it gets to, there will be a point where me and my wife will sit down and we'll talk about, just like, what do we want to do with the rest of our lives? Do we want to keep, pushing it in the gym? Do we want to keep being sore, getting out of bed? And there will come a time when I do shut it down. We often talk about dropping down in weight classes. No, for me, just like the back of my shirt says, all gas, no brakes. It's all gas, no brakes, or no gas at all. Like, once I'm done, I'm done. Like, I ain't dropping down to another weight class.
What would you do if you did cut down? Because you strike me as the type of guy where you're always going to be an athlete, right? Like, in some capacity. So would you?
I'm actually working on something right now. I just can't let the world know. It has to be a secret until I'm actually working on something right now.
Yeah, you got too much. I mean, you got the type of combination, like we're saying, with the absolute strength and with the explosiveness, to where, I mean, you can do a lot of different things. So let's.
I definitely.
Yeah. I won't. If it's something where you really do have to,
Yeah, I have to keep it a secret.
Yeah, I won't pressure you, because I know that feeling where you kind of have like projects where you're like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's shift to the fun questions here. So these are going to be a little bit out there, and let me be clear. If you feel at all uncomfortable, but you have an opinion, just let it fly. If you don't want to say it, you could definitely tell it. Like, that's fine. But I want to be clear that, look, it's like, at some point, this is the stage where if someone's gonna get offended or whatever, who cares? Okay, so sometimes you just gotta do that on YouTube. Okay, so let's say 4 legendary squatters.
Mm-hmm.
You, Mark Henry, Paul Anderson, and Shane Hamman. Let's imagine they're all born in the modern era. What is your rank? First, second, third, last. Give it. Yeah. Yeah, who are you going to give it last on?
Man. Honestly, like, I'm going to explain. First of all, I'm always going to root for myself first.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
But with today's advancements in gear and training equipment, dude, that's whew, like, man, that's crazy.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, Mark Henry squatted 933 in high school.
Was that equipped? That's got to be equipped.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that was equipped. But you're still talking about early 90s, like, man. I'm gonna say I would put myself around 2 or 3. Just because, man.
Yeah, so who's your number one? Who's your number one? Let's start with the easiest one, I'm
gonna have to say Mark Henry, man. Just because it's everybody else you named, sort of kind of where their powerlifting careers went, because Mark Henry has a question mark. Like right when he got hot, right when he got good, when he was starting to take off, like where most of us we kind of catch that groove and we just ride it out. He stopped and he did the Olympics, then he went to the WWE. So it's a question mark. So and we know how strong he was then. Like he had a 900-pound deadlift.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I think he's the most, like, his deadlift is the most unique, because I personally suspect that Paul Anderson probably would be lacking in the deadlift, realistically. He seems very built like a pure squatter. And I think Shane Hamman's relatively similar, but Mark Henry was just like a freak in terms of strength.
Yes, like on both powerlifting and on the weightlift, on the Olympic side, like his flexibility to be as big as he was just mind-blowing. Do you like how often you're compared to him, by the way? Because it is unreal how many comments I've seen of people saying, like, this looks like the second coming of Mark Henry. Oh, yeah.
So many times.
Like, to be put in the same light as any four of these gentlemen is unbelievable. Yeah. Because, man, like I said, I'm some dude from Mississippi, training in Mississippi.
Yeah. Yeah, so who would you put? So you put Mark Henry number one. Now, let's be clear, though, to back up, that I am saying of squatting. So as far as the deadlifts, let's make sure we kind of don't factor that for this thing. But you'd still say Mark Henry probably number one. I definitely suspect, too, that Mark Henry, if he kind of mastered the low bar squat, because I believe, didn't he squat high bar the whole time?
Yes, he did.
And he had relatively long femurs, I'd say relative to other guys. He didn't really have that Shane Hamman type build. So yeah, I definitely totally see your point there, even though I would have you at number one. So can I tell you to put yourself at number two? I
want to be number two because I like the underdog role and I like to feel like I'm chasing something.
Okay, yeah, just do not put yourself at number three. Come on, you're Ray Williams here. You squat 1,080. So who is number three and who is last?
This is going to upset a lot of people, but I'm going to have to say Shane Hamman.
For last or for third?
No, third.
For third. Oh, damn. Okay, so Paul Anderson last.
Only reason I say that, and like I said, I recently watched the documentary on A&E, and it was like, because the silver dollar squats.
Yeah. Oh.
They kind of debunked it a little bit because they were like, there's no way it could have been that much weight in this deal, in those little cases.
Yeah.
And they was like, we probably think it was just the front, the part that people could see that were loaded to the top with silver dollars. So that kind of messed it up for me, man. Kind of messed it up for me. But he still was an Olympic gold medalist and all that, so much respect, but he got to go at number 4.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think that's the thing that people would underestimate about you. Seriously, is that how kind of plainly analytical you are as far as, like, it either is or it isn't. And because definitely someone like myself, when I hear Paul Anderson's stories, it's very similar to Wilt Chamberlain's vertical leap. Supposedly it's higher than Michael Jordan's. Do I think it's higher than Michael Jordan's? No. It's like, and people bring up that he's a high jumper. He high jumped like 6'7" or 6'8", something like that. Very, very good. That's not that's not so good that it'd be beyond Michael Jordan's vertical leap because he already has a high hip height.
No doubt.
Yeah, and there are still, like, I know a guy who high jumped 6'8" in high school. He's no Michael Jordan. In your opinion, what strongman, either living now or in the past, would make the best powerlifter?
I would, and this is going to be selfish, but I would have loved to compete it against Odie Wilson.
I don't even know who that is, honestly.
Odie Wilson is, he was known as the strongest man to never win World's Strongest Man.
Oh, really? Oh, I think I've seen a picture. Was he on Powerlifting USA or what?
Yes.
I've seen that. Okay.
Yep. He ex-powerlifter, turned strongman, just like most people in that era. Bill Kazmaier was the same way. Bill Kazmaier was another one. I would have loved to have competed against Bill Kazmaier. But if I had to pick one, it would be Odie Wilson.
Odie Wilson, that's great. Yeah, what do you think about Eddie Hall and Thor? Do you think? Well, Thor put up a huge total with reps, obviously on the tested side of things. Do you think if those guys pursued powerlifting full time, obviously we can't compare that to the tested side with sleeves, but do you think both of those guys would probably overtake the world record on the other side of the sport, on the untested with reps?
No, easily. Easily. Honestly, Brian Shaw, Thor, and Eddie Hall, they strike me as people, if they put their mind to something, they're going to get it done.
Yeah.
That's just, I've met Thor. I've actually, we're both SBD. I've met Thor, been, hung out with him a couple of times. Not so much Eddie Hall and Brian Shaw, but, by the content they put out on YouTube and social media, they all three of them strike me as people, if they put their mind to something, they get it done. Yeah. So I think, yes, without a doubt.
Yeah, speaking of it, now this is an off-color question here, is if you were offered that big money for a fight, like their situation, would you take a fight like that? If it was big money.
No doubt. I think dude was it's a 7-figure song.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sign me up for that tomorrow. We can put these things. We can throw hands right now. It ain't gonna be much of a boxing match. We gonna be scrapping.
I think you would be. I think you'd be better than all of them as far as explosiveness goes. We can get beat with. I win, lose, or draw. If I win, I win. If I get beat up, I just set my kids' college fund out to the side. Hey, it's a win-win. So this is a very similar question: is what NFL player do you think would have made for the best powerlifter?
Probably Larry Allen.
Larry, yeah.
O-lineman.
Right? Yeah. What do you think about? As far as lighter players, do you agree with me that I think Maurice Jones-Drew, as far as an 83, 93 kilogram lifter, would put up something crazy?
I'm gonna go one better. I'm gonna say Saquon Barkley.
Oh, okay. Legs-wise, Maurice Jones-Drew, man, he's built like a stump.
Yeah, but
Barkley's fast. He's fast and he is a little stumpy. But Maurice Jones-Drew is like a stumpy.
But Barkley is like a 400-pound cleaner, though.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't.
Oh, yeah, if you go back and watch his Penn State stuff, dude was cleaning 365, 385. He's a monster.
Really? Yeah, that kind of reminds me of Darren Sproles, I believe, had a huge, clean number. Yeah, some of those running backs, especially the explosiveness, is just unreal.
I think it had to do with being a running back. Their center of gravity is just so great. For somebody like me, I agree, yes.
Yeah, honestly, I think the talent, if you had all of the talent in those mainstream sports, and particularly the NFL, I mean, the thing that's mind-blowing to me is that so many NFL players have higher vertical leaps than NBA superstars, even, just because they're that athletic. They're that explosive. I think they'd be...
Because I think earlier basketball players don't lift weights. And I'm not saying, please, I'm not saying basketball players don't lift weights. I'm saying basketball players don't train like football players. Like, football players train. Number one, we have to be equipped to train in the elements. We have to be equipped to train inside. I just think it's a different mentality when it comes to training, and I think that translates to more athleticism. Plus, football players have to be more athletic in a more physical environment.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So now let's transition out of this to say, what are your 3 favorite lifters to follow? Just who are 3 lifters that you just say, I'm a fan of? Like when you go to look, it could be either YouTube or Instagram. You just want to see what they're doing. They're kind of motivation to you.
One is definitely Bonike. I think she is the goddess of lifting. Like, she's done it World Games. I mean, 1 year won Equip Worlds, World Games, and won at Raw. Like, I'm like, damn, she's definitely she is the goddess. She's a beast. So I definitely follow her. Who's my dude? Damn, what's my dude name? I'm thinking of Instagram handles. My dude in Texas, Russ.
Yeah, Russ.
Yeah, man, he's definitely fun to watch. I think he puts out a lot of good content.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm rooting for him opening this new gym.
Yeah. Did you ever visit that?
Well, all you gotta do is say the door is open and we come.
I can tell you for sure he wants you to come there.
Oh yeah, well, we coming. just put the bars you don't want messed up. Put them to the side.
Yeah.
And another dude, man, he kind of remind me of myself. Is my man Joe P. Man, Joe's opinion, man. He, he had the little baby. Yeah, he had his little baby, and he kind of took a little hiatus to take care of that, and now he's right back in the gym grinding. Like
the young guy, he had a kid. The young guy,
yeah.
He's the guy who's on starting strength, and he's the low bar squatter kind of.
The Texas kid that squatted 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had his kid, and life hit him with a situation. He had to go man up, take care of that, and now he back in the gym grinding, doing his thing. So I kind of Joe P.
Yeah, it's honestly fascinating to see that the super heavyweight division is such a unique situation because it takes so many years to graduate to that. Because you could say, like, even let's say someone like Russell, realistically, and this has nothing, this is no negativity, it's just realistically he could not climb the ranks as quickly, and I'm sure he totally would agree with this, in the super heavyweights, just because it takes more time to get that type of mass. That you really don't see guys who are like 23, 24, 25.
They don't want to be this big. They don't want to be this big, though. That's the thing.
It just takes so much time. Even if they wanted to, I don't even think they could, to be honest. Like, because especially the size that you are with, I mean, you have, every single person I've talked to about you, they're amazed at how your lats and traps are like shaped. You're not just 400 pounds of kind of sloppy and then that, like, you are a built 400 pounds. So does that make you almost like cheer for these guys to like keep with it? Because I actually remember when Andy Askow, I believe, he was kind of the next guy who was going to come up, and then the UK guy, Luke, I'm forgetting his last name, Luke
Richardson.
Yeah, Luke Richardson. He was kind of talking a little bit on social media, like he's coming after you, but then he did like switch to Strongman.
Man, Luke, my dude, man. Like, Luke, my dude. Luke was the crazy thing is Luke roots for me. I root for Luke, man. And believe it or not, he's gonna be the next to with a super big deadlift. Like Luke is a freak of nature.
Yeah, he's progressing very well. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if anyone sticks with it, because it's actually pretty surprising how you've kind of created this crater where I think you pushed people to push for 1,000 pounds, and then after you kind of established dominance, it's almost like you demoralize the competition. It's almost like Tiger Woods, where you're on top for so long that you almost paved your own path to where people kind of don't even mess with it, in a sense. Actually, I do want to ask about that. Can I ask something real quick? What about have you ever thought about if Dennis Cornelius moved up to compete with you? Because he's the only guy I could see being like a real contender without disrespecting the other competitors.
I agree. And I'll add one more element to that. I'll go established and unestablished. Established, I'll go Dennis Cornelius and Joe P. Like on the U.S. side, established people that we know, those are two guys that are really strong that I know really were pushing for that 1,000 mark. Yeah. And they've both been won national championships, world championships, got world records. And if we go unestablished, I'm gonna go Trey Thomas. Trey Thomas is another super heavy. He competed. I think he came in second at Raw Nationals this past year in Chicago. He's coming along. Actually, he squatted 903 at the Arnold.
He's that. Okay, that's what I was thinking. He's the one who squats high bar, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we go for unestablished, still getting there, I'm gonna have to go Trey. I just think the youth in powerlifting is way better than when I came in. There wasn't a whole bunch of the young guys. I was the young guy, and now I think the youth. Now that people see that powerlifting can actually be fun and can take you somewhere. Yeah. Like I think the youth in powerlifting is just really rich right now, and it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate. Because I came in the game when I was 26, so I had a job, I had my career, I was in school, so I had already navigated college and all that. I just think it'll be interesting to see how this new wave of youngsters will navigate life and college. Will they stick with powerlifting, or will life pull them another way? That's the interesting thing.
It's fascinating, honestly, because it's actually something I've talked with Omar Isov. Do you know of him?
Mm-hmm.
He's a YouTuber. It's like I've actually talked with him about this, where it's like it's very interesting that. I don't know if it's my bias towards kind of what you're saying, where kind of the good old days of you lifted just to lift. It's that there's this weird advantage that I'm sure you're in a similar situation where it's like we never gave ourselves credit for lifting. It's like it's just what we did. It's what you like. Like even if your life's going poorly, like you're still gonna lift. And you're not gonna like look at it as okay, well I lifted. That's something I accomplished today. It was just you doing that regardless. Mm-hmm. I do think it's very interesting where it's like if it becomes a potential option for your life and it's like something where you get rewarded for, it may incentivize pushing harder earlier. And it's like now it's like, no, this is what I'm doing. It's okay if I, messed up in this area or that area. Like, it was kind of nice to have that in the background. And this leads me to a question I have for you. And obviously, maybe we're just glorifying whatever we lived through. Because realistically, the talent, it's getting way better. Let's not mistake ourselves. So here's a question I have for you, though, is if you could change anything about powerlifting today, what would it be? You have a magic wand. You could change anything. It could be culturally. It could be organizationally.
I would condense everything down to maybe 2 or 3 federations. I think there are too many. I think powerlifting now is becoming so diluted with because everybody has a world championship. Everybody has their own. This is what we do here, and I think it's messing up because the way powerlifting should be, there should be a certain set of guidelines and techniques that you have to know and possess to do it. And that's it. It's like playing basketball. Yeah. You take a ball, you put it in a hole. That's basketball. Mm-hmm. Powerlifting, well, if you powerlift over here, we powerlift with knee sleeves, belts, we do it this way. But if you come over here, we let you wear X, Y, Z, 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 Z. But if we go over here in this corner over here, we do it the same way. But we, it's like depending on where you go, you got to learn an entirely different set of guidelines. And I feel like that dilutes and messes up powerlifting. I think we need to condense, cut a little fat off, and move forward.
Yeah. That leads me into one of my final questions, and that is, do you see a future of powerlifting being on ESPN?
That's a tough question because in my soul, I want to say yes. Because I turn on ESPN. I've seen darts before. I saw the deal where what's it called, the ultimate frisbee thing.
Yeah,
that's on there.
Like water polo too,
it's like powerlifting, and you can't tell me not enough people follow powerlifting.
Mm-hmm. Especially your squad. I mean, the funny thing is like I've honestly thought is there any way to just get your squad on ESPN's top 10 plays? Squad specifically.
And the thing is, like when Thor went for the huge deadlift, ESPN picked it up. So that lets you know, like, people are watching powerlifting. It's just people are like, what they doing over there in the corner. They haven't moved us into the limelight yet.
Yeah.
And I do think it could get there. I just think, that'll come with the condensing deal. Because I honestly think, if ESPN or somebody picked it up, I think the following would be stupid.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think your views on all those outlets speak for itself. I mean, it's a fascinating thing where it's like even I deal with it, and kind of my whole life I've dealt with it. It's been like the motivation for my whole channel's existence, realistically, is like I've had people talk to me saying that like nobody cares about powerlifting. I'm like, dude, I've met like almost everybody I'm friends with. I've met through powerlifting, through my channel, through this. It's like, it's interesting how people can see living proof that you can have something substantial in some way, like your corner of the internet or whatever. And like with yourself I believe there's a video of you on Facebook that got like 17 million views, something up there like that. And it's amazing that people can see that and still repeat what we've been told 10 years ago. They're like, oh, nobody cares about it. It's like, well, objectively they do. They do.
people that say they don't care about powerlifting or they don't care, those are the people who go to the gym every blue moon. They don't like the gym. I mean, it's just like anybody, like people who turn on ESPN, prime example, when Wimbledon is going on, and that's all that's on ESPN is tennis. People, why is tennis on? I mean, that's somebody that don't like tennis.
Wow. I think I would take it even a step further, because something that I find interesting is a lot of times it's guys who powerlift who are negative like this. I think it's almost like this. Yeah, I think it's almost like this, putting it down so that then they don't feel bad about not being good at powerlifting, because it's like, oh, we all suck anyways.
I was about to say,
it's like
if you're good at something,
right?
Yeah, no doubt. If you're good at something, you want people to see. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what you've done a great job of, is being an ambassador for the sport, in really every way. So before I let you off the hook here, I do want to ask you about something that's a little bit more viral bait in a certain sense. But Joe Rogan had Ronnie Coleman on. And the talk of the town, and this has been the theme every time Ronnie Coleman gets brought up, and I think you are the best person to speak on this, is heavy lifting destroys your body. That's kind of the theme of that, is that, well, it's due to the heavy lifting that then it hurt his back. And he got multiple surgeries. So to someone from the outside looking in, and I've seen a lot of comments on your squats saying, like, why even do this? Like, you're destroying your body, this and that. What do you have to say to someone who says that squatting 1,000 pounds is going to destroy your body? Do you think that they're just foolish overall in their view of how you plan things out? Or do you think, hey, maybe they're right and I'm just crazy? How do you view it?
I'm going to attack that question two ways. Number one, I've squatted 1,000 pounds 51 times.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
this is 51 times since 2016 when I first hit it in the gym before Atlanta Raw Nationals.
Yeah.
51 times. So if I've squatted 1,000 pounds 51 times, that means I've done 900, a couple of hundred, 800, a couple of hundred, 700. Lord have mercy.
I bet
So
you've
we
done
keep
800
going.
over 1,000. It has to be, because warming up just.
So with that being said, like, and I'm waiting to my training progression to work up to my next 1,000-pound squat. So squatting, big weight, powerlifting does not tear down your body. It's when you get in the gym and you try to do it for the gram or you're doing it for the bros, that's when you tear up your body, because that's when you get outside of your body. And now it's all about, instead of training for preparing for a moment, now you're doing something for a moment that you may not be ready for. Mm-hmm. See, if I fail at the end of my progression, I can go back and this is what I can change, this is what I can change. But if you do something for a moment that you're not prepared for, then there's nothing you can do. All you can say, well, I wasn't supposed to be in that moment. Yeah. And second, that which hinders you controls you. People who talk about stuff like, why is he doing? Those are people that are afraid of it. If you put their ceiling on a bar, and let's say they train for it, 9 times out of 10 they're going to be thinking about everything that can go wrong. Fear controls certain people. Yeah. When you grow up a certain way to, a certain, well, I'm just going to say it bluntly. When you grow up like I did, like, you ain't got time to be scared. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I've been through so much in my 33 years that, you get numb to certain stuff. So I look at stuff as a challenge. It beats me. It beats me. If I beat it, I beat it. But the thing is, like, I'm never gonna be so scared that you won't even attempt it.
Yeah, man, that's real. Yeah, that's that's heavy. That's that actually connects back to something that I want to say as we close out here. Is you brought up how people supported you during your downtime. Is I do want to give you public credit that you are a direct reason why my channel's still running. Because actually, when I was injured, I even had private conversations with buddies of mine who were already burnt out of powerlifting, and I remember sharing your videos. It was right around that squat with the Knuck If Your Buck playing in the background. And I remember sharing that, saying that is why I have to keep going into powerlifting, because you were really keeping it hot, honestly. Like, you were really giving it that push where I feel like there was this kind of wave where it was kind of the YouTube-ish, natural, smaller guys like Matt Ogus, myself, Omar, kind of guys into it, and you had a huge squat. Then there got to a point where a lot of people kind of faded out and in, and you still had that huge squat, and you were the superstar. I mean, you really were the face of it during that time. So I just want to say that directly to you, that thank you for that, because, I mean, you really did carry the sport, and I think ways that almost even you probably don't know the extent. That honestly affects, like, everybody of all weight classes.
I just see it as iron sharpens iron, and, before that, I squatted 905 in 2013. I didn't hit that 1,000 until 2016. So, man, between the 905 and the 1,000, just like you said, like, I had to cling on to somebody too, because I had my battle with performance where, man, walking upstairs, putting on socks, everything hurts. So, I had to find something to cling on to.
Man, I remember when, I think one of your initial low points, which is why I have no doubt that now you'll spring back up, was when I believe you missed like 880 or you ended with 880 when you're squatting with Romaleos. I remember it was the last meet where you squatted with heeled shoes. I think it was 2014, Ron Ash.
Oh, hell yeah. Aurora, Colorado.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I remember that. And honestly, that did make me emotional when you squatted 1,000 pounds, even though I wasn't there. Like, I remember, I legitimately got, like, emotional in my car because I remember thinking, like, damn, I remember seeing you, like, ascend, then kind of have that downturn. Because, I mean, I was front row during that time, like, that specific meet. And then you came back and crushed it. And I remember that interview where you said you want to squat 1,000 pounds. And I can tell you from personal experience, I know of guys who laughed that off, who were like, that sounds crazy. Like, okay, but he's strong, but that's nuts. And you did it. Like, you really did it.
Yep.
Yeah.
By the grace of God.
Yeah. So, honestly, I would love to see 500 kilograms, and I have absolutely no doubt that if that's the primary goal, honestly, all it takes is just enough time. As long as that's the primary goal for enough time, I have absolutely no doubt you'll hit it. So that really concludes this interview. First of all, I'd like to thank you for spending the time with me and the audience. And yeah, overall, I'd just like to thank you for, honestly, everything that you've done for the sport, for everything you've done for me. As far as inspiration goes, you are my favorite powerlifter, I'd say directly, and to me, it does feel surreal to be able to talk to you because it's like, it is almost like me being able to talk to Usain Bolt, as I was always a big track fan. So,
man, yeah.
it's being able to talk to the king of the sport. And honestly, you're a historical figure. Like, I'll look back at this video, to my kids and grandkids that I was able to talk to the first person to ever squat 1,000 pounds. And nobody else can take that.
Well, man, I just want to let you know, man, I appreciate it. I definitely followed you for a long time, even back in the YouTube days when I first got into it. Man, it kind of makes you appreciate what we have as lifters, being that, we come from different backgrounds, but we can all come together and agree on this, I think as long as the sport has good people like yourself in it that are putting out good content and actually researching what they're putting out, and they're just not putting out in the moment stuff, this sport will continue to grow, and powerlifting will be here long after us. But I definitely think you're leaving a positive mark on the sport, man. Oh,
thank you. Yeah, and will you stick around with me as like a older coach figure in the background? Will you still be at nationals when you're like 55, 60? Because I'll still be there hanging around. Will you be the next Matt Gary in some sense? Like, maybe not.
Probably not Matt Gary, but I definitely come around and check it out when the new hot guy pops up.
Yeah, it's got to be a lifelong connection.
No doubt.
But yeah, that concludes it. So to everybody watching who's gone through this, it's a little over 2 hours, but that is actually exactly what I want for this long form, Joe Rogan style.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so thank you for being on. Thanks for everyone for listening, and make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thanks for watching, everyone.
God bless.